You've been trying to figure out the best budgeting method for you and your finances, but there's just so many different ways out there. Well, lucky for you, I'm going to go over 4 different budget methods and the pros and cons so that you can make the best decision for you and your finances. If you are new here, my name is Tashieka. I'm the founder of JamaaWealth Financial and a financial coach. Hit that subscribe and notification button so you can get notified when I post more videos like this. And if you are an OG, welcome back. So let's talk about the most simplest budgeting method of all. The first one is what I like to call the simple budget method. And with this, you're taking your income, this is the amount that hits your bank account, minus your total monthly expenses. The reason I call this the simple budget method, because you're not really focused too much on the minute details. You're really just adding up what are your total expenses, and then you're subtracting that from your income to come up with what is going to be your discretionary income. Now, discretionary income is the amount that you have left over after you've paid all of your bills and expenses. This method is probably going to be the most easiest for you as a beginner because you're not having to dissect and break things apart. You're really just looking at what are your average expenses per month and then subtracting that amount from your income to figure out what you have left over to put towards your goals. The benefit of this method is that it's pretty straightforward and you're looking at your overall spending for the month and not really trying to break down each individual category within your spending. Budget method number 2 is what we call the 50-30-20 budget method. That means you have 50% will go towards your needs. So those are things like your housing, your mortgage and rent, utilities, groceries. These are the things that you need for your daily living. That's what's going to keep your lights on, food on the table, things like that. 30% of that is going to go towards your wants. These are things that you don't necessarily need for your daily living, like your dining out, your entertainment, travel. That's going to fit up 30% of your income. And then the remaining 20% is going to be for their savings and debt. Now, the reason you have savings and debt combined is because it gets you in the mindset to think that if you are able to pay off all of your debt, the money from that bucket will then be used to fund your goals, retirement, and save. Now, the great thing about this method is it doesn't require a lot of manipulation. You will take your take-home pay and divide that amongst 50, 30, and 20. So, for example, you make $5,000 a month in take-home pay. 50% of that will be $2,500. That will be designated for your need. The 30% will be about $1,500 that you can take for your wants. And then 20%, which is about $1,000, will be used for your savings and investment. Now, the benefit is that you don't have to do a lot of manipulation, and you can essentially say, this is my income, and I'm dedicating 50% towards my needs, 30% towards my wants, and 20% towards my savings and investments. The downside is if your needs expenses are extremely high, say you have an extremely high mortgage, or you have a lot of high utilities and expenses, it could be a little bit nerve-wracking because you may feel like you can't fit that within that 30% bucket. This method I would recommend for someone who's a beginner, but you really just want to have a straightforward way to just split your money apart and attack your expenses. But keep in mind, you may find that your expenses may not fit within these buckets. I find that it's a little too rigid to say 50%, 30%, 20%, but you can use it as a guideline. Budget method number 3 is my personal favorite. It is called the pay yourself first method. Now, with this method, I feel that it gives you a little bit more leeway for you to decide for your own finances what percentages you want to put towards your expenses. With this method, you are focused on paying yourself first. There is no set percentage of how much you should pay yourself, but you want to start off with what is your actual goal and vision. If your goal is that you want to save and build an emergency fund and you want to save for retirement, then focus on what you actually need to put aside for those expenses. Essentially, this method is designed for you to assign your money first towards your savings and investment goals, and then you're living off of the rest. By operating in this manner, you are setting aside and prioritizing yourself first before you're actually taking the rest of the money towards your bills and expenses. Now, the benefit of this is once you've saved, you can then choose and decide how you want to utilize the remaining expenses, as long as you stay within what's left over. And then the last method is the zero-based budget method. This method is for you to assign every dollar of your income towards a bill or an expense. This doesn't mean that you're spending every single dollar of your income. The idea is that you are assigning what you want to do with that money and planning ahead for it. This method is particularly good for those who don't know where their money is going and they want to get an idea and assign where they want their money to go. It gives you a little bit more control over your income and to stay within your plan. I would say the downside of this for a beginner, it may be a little bit much and a little overwhelming for some. Personally, what I've done is I've utilized the pay yourself first method in combination with the zero-based budget. This method was very useful for me, one, because it allowed me to save money first. I'm paying myself first. And then at the tail end is allowing me to assign my income to the areas that I want them to go to ensure that I'm meeting my expense goals and anything else that I want to have in terms of vacations or certain expenses that I want to plan and prioritize, because every month is not going to be the same. So depending on your personality and whether you just want something simple, whether you want something laid out in terms of percentages like the 50-30-20 method, or if you're really focused on wanting to save money so that you can just live with what's left over, perhaps the pay yourself first budget and the zero-based budget may work best for you. But what I would recommend for you as someone who is just starting out, start out with the simplest method. I would recommend trying to stick with that budget for at least 60 to 90 days, because it really does take a while for you to get used to a budget method. And then after that time, if you find that one method isn't working for you, you can always switch over to another method. But try to avoid shifting and switching between a different budget method every month, because then you're really not going to be able to settle in on a method that works best for you. You always want to start off first with what is your goal, what is that you want to work towards, and then work backwards to determine, do I need something that is more rigid and structured, or can I go with something like the pay yourself first method where you're putting aside money for yourself and then living off of the rest? But the most important thing with budgeting is you want to make sure that you have an understanding of how much money you are bringing in each month, and then setting aside what you want that income to do for you. Essentially planning ahead in how you're going to spend your money. If you need a simple yet easy guide to help you jumpstart your money journey, click the link below and download my free Foundations to Wealth Money Guide. And there's a lot of great resources to help you jumpstart your journey. Remember to subscribe and hit that notification budget so you can get notified when I post more videos like this.